So, hi guys, this is Jim Gast with No Law Firm Left Behind, and I'm sitting here with two of my colleagues, Dave Myers and Vinny DelVal. I will give them a minute to introduce themselves. But first, I'd like to tell you real quick about No Law Firm Left Behind and what it's all about and why it came to existence. So, No Law Firm Left Behind came about when the COVID quarantine started happening, and a lot of people had to go work from home. A lot of customers stopped buying things and going places, and people being furloughed and so on and so forth. And what we realized when we started this is that a lot of law firms are going to have a lot of problems getting customers, keeping their staffs employed and attorneys employed, and keeping the doors open in general. So we decided to create a national effort to help those law firms in any way, shape, or form that we could. One of the things we first did, and you guys chime in on this, you guys knew about this from the beginning. One of the things we did first was offer free tools for law firms to help their staff and attorneys get remote access to their computers, and that went over well. And then we subsequently moved into helping them secure things. When you're in a rush to get things set up, everybody kind of stops remembering about the security aspect of things. So we started giving free security tools to help lock things down. Oh, go. What?
You lost Dave, and you kept going.
What do you mean? I'm right here.
Dave's right there, man.
Dave went off my screen for a minute, or for 10 seconds.
You need to get your own internet, Vinny. Vinny, enough about No Law Firm Left Behind. You want to go ahead and talk about yourself a little bit? Introduce yourself.
Yeah, sure. My name is Vinny DelVal, and I am the Senior Solutions Architect with SpliceNet. I just joined the team again, and I'm looking forward to reconnecting with folks. I'm looking forward to helping folks as they transition back to the office in providing their solutions, answering questions, and whatever they need to make that transition back, whether they are coming back part-time and going to continue working from home or coming back full-time.
I think, Vinny, you're underselling yourself. Let me say a little bit about Vinny, if you don't mind. Would you mind, Vinny? I'm looking over here.
No, go ahead.
So Vinny is what I would consider to be one of the forefathers of Legaltech, at least here in the greater Cincinnati, Ohio, Kentucky, Indiana region. Vinny was doing what he's doing the same time I started our business, SpliceNet, 25 years ago. So we were kind of competitors back then in a sense, but he was working with law firms all over the place and had an incredible amount of respect from lawyers and the legal community when I came on the scene. So working with all kinds of great applications that still exist today, like like iManage and PC Law World Docs and so on. It just had a wealth of respect in the legal community. So he won't say that. I'll say it for him. You agree, Dave? Dave, you know about Vinny from way back then.
Yeah, Vinny's been around for quite a while. Been around longer than I have, that's for sure.
Yeah, the gray hair shows it too. No, Dave. Dave. You want to tell everybody a little bit about yourself, what you do for SpliceNet, what you've been doing also, and your background?
Yeah. So my name's Dave Myers. I'm one of the owners of SpliceNet, and I've been with them for now about 13 years. And before that, I was a full-time practicing attorney. And now I actually have taken the two and put them together. So while if you ask the guys at the office what I do for SpliceNet, they'll lovingly tell you I do absolutely nothing. The reality of it is I focus most of my time on R&D, as well as trying to integrate what we're doing from a technical perspective, along with the cybersecurity and data privacy aspects from both the technical and the regulatory requirements. So I've kind of taken both of those disciplines and sort of put it together. And I do a lot of our consulting. I work with a lot of our larger clients that have oddball needs and maybe not exactly technical needs at all times, and that's pretty much what I'm doing these days.
Yeah, you know what? You're an expert at doing nothing well.
People call it lazy. I call it efficient.
efficiency when there's nothing being accomplished is definitely efficient. I'm just kidding.
I get the same amount of work done with very little.
Oh, I love it. So, and for you that don't know me, thanks for watching the video. Thanks for watching our podcast. Listen to the podcast. I'm Jim Gaston, and I would call myself a law firm evangelist or a law firm technology evangelist. Kind of depends on what role I'm playing for each individual company. But I've been doing what I'm doing for 25 years, and it would be easier for me to tell you what I haven't been certified on from a legal applications perspective than it would be to tell you all the applications I have been certified on. Same thing with Vinny, same thing with Dave, by the way. So, as you listen, hopefully, our goals will be the same in the No Law Firm Left Behind group here on this podcast. The goals will be to help law firms keep their doors open and maintain competitiveness. Also to help attorneys and their staff keep working and being productive and being efficient, and ultimately attracting clients to your law firm, and to keep them calling, right? So that you're the number one trusted attorney that they want to reach out to instead of somebody else. So that's what our goals are. And so one of the things we're going to talk about today, and I'm really interested in your input, Dave and Vinny. We had our team, and I'm sure hundreds of other IT people in the legal community were scrambling when COVID quarantines hit, and everybody started getting locked down. Everybody started needing remote access. It was, paramount to keeping those doors open and keeping those people working. So, Dave, would you kind of go into a little bit about what you saw us do and our clients do to transition to working from home?
So the biggest thing that I saw was there was a fear of unknown. Believe it or not, the technology really worked pretty, I hate using the word, but flawlessly. I mean, we had some quirks here and there, but there was still a lot of people who were very unsure that they would ever be able to work this way. And so we had probably a more difficult time leading up to the switch to remote work than we did after people just went home. Mm-hmm. It's almost once people went home and they saw, hey, we can do this. We can actually get things done when we're not at the office. And I actually can use my computer and I can use my technology and I can still do my job.
Are you saying that, and sorry to interrupt, but it sounds like you're really saying that there was almost a fear of the unknown.
That's exactly right. Yeah. I mean, There was definitely the fear of not having ever done it. You have to remember, most of these people, they don't know what it's like to work from home. They had never done it before. Even among your tech savvy individuals, most of the time their work from home was limited to one or two of the overall functions that they do on a day-to-day basis. So to transition everything and not only just say, well, we're going to work from home at nights or on weekends, but this is your primary location, that had a lot of people spooked. Yeah. And so there was a lot of, I always like to say as a tech person, you might do about 20% fixing stuff, and you're doing about 80% holding people's hands and making them comfortable.
I was thinking the word education.
That's our real job is to, Jim and I have always had this term, give people the binky, give people the safety blanket.
Oh, yeah.
That's where most of the work was. It was telling our points of contact. It was telling our users, we'll get through this. We'll get you there. Trust me, the technology's there. You just got to let us do our thing.
And Vinny, it was a lot. There was a lot of people that even before they made the decision to go RFW or RWF work for RFW, I forget, I get it back mixed up.
WFH?
But even before WF, thank you. What did I say? Oh, I'm thinking of return to work, RTW. So the acronyms nowadays. But Vinny, even before that, we had people calling that were asking, can we do this? Right? Mm-hmm. Did you experience that yourself?
Yeah, I think because people are not used, like Dave said, we're not used to working from home. They were thinking about all the things they needed, the technology they needed that they have in the office every day that they walk into. And people were asking, how are we going to do this? Can we do this? It's shown, there were people that were concerned about productivity. Are we going to be productive when we're at home? But it has shown that for the majority of the folks that it has worked. Right? Yeah. They were able to hunker down. For those who were able to work at home, they were able to hunker down in their homes and do their job, and in some cases be more productive, is what I've heard when I'm talking to folks, is that they were actually more productive at home than they were in the office.
Yeah, I actually did once it started. You guys know this, but in case our audience doesn't know it, I started doing a bunch of videos. I mean, I just thought it was really important for people to start getting educated, getting information, and telling them, how to be productive, how to work harder, how to not be interrupted, how to monitor their staff. I mean, whether you want to monitor or not, we're all doing something new and we're afraid for our businesses. So we needed to know if we could work from remote and if we could work productively from remote. I actually recommended some tools to monitor people. I'm sure a lot of people hopped on those types of things because I think it went in phases, didn't it? Really? Can we do it? Mm-hmm. Help us do it.
Yep.
Help us make it secure. And then how do we make sure we're getting the most out of this, right? Yeah. And so those were the phases, and I don't want to revisit all of them, but I think that you guys gave a good preface. But what we agree we're going to talk about today was the RTW, return to work, right? And so all those, can we make me, secure me, and keep me, if you will, right? Those are kind of a lot less important right now. And people, especially in Ohio and a lot of other states, are already lifting restrictions. A lot of people are already back into the office, but now we have to, in a sense, reverse engineer all this. You guys want to chime in on talking about reverse engineering?
Sure. In some cases, I think people will roll back some of the things that they've put in place because they are planning to return to the office. But in talking to some folks already, I had a conversation with someone today who said, we might not ever come back to the office. We might have a shared office, and just have a conference room that we can come in and have meetings and just work from home full time. And they were talking about the technologies that they would need for that. But in some cases, I've also talked to, as folks transition back, is how do we continue to utilize some of these technologies that we discovered in this process, right? Some people discovered these technologies. How do we utilize that on an ongoing basis and also have our office presence?
To have a hybrid. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Dave, do you know of anybody that's not going to go back?
I've heard from several people that have said they might just continue, at least with a smaller workforce, at least part of the time, where they're going to only have certain people in the office as needed. Yeah. And the idea there is that I've heard from folks is, hey, offices cost money, sometimes quite a bit of money. And if we can actually get as much stuff done or more and save thousands, or in some cases, tens of thousands of dollars a month on office space, why would we waste our money? I think the big thing that I've heard from people that are returning to the office, there's almost like two kinds of groups out there. Okay. There's like two kinds of offices. You've got an environment where people are very independent, and it's almost like a bunch of individuals that just happen to share a common hallway. And then you have places where we really have that team environment where we're consistently working together all day long. What we're seeing here could be the beginning of a completely different office environment, more along the lines of that hybrid that, you and Vinny had just referenced, where, we're going to keep some presence, but it doesn't necessarily have to be everybody in the office 9 to 5, Monday through Friday.
think about this, right? And Dave, you and I have talked about this when things really shut down. We kind of we opened our eyes up, right? It was quite an eye opener for you and me. And Vinny, Dave, and I talked about this with restaurants, right? And wow, that industry, if you think about that industry for the longest time, it has either been a carryout industry or an eat-in industry, okay? And only certain subsets of them really heavily delivered or even had curbside for that matter. And even the curbside was kind of underutilized, right? It was kind of a second thought if I was in a hurry. Pizza delivery forever, right? Now I can get freaking anything I want delivered. If I want to get Panda Express or Chipotle, my kid goes pick up Chipotle, but he does it because he can walk in, grab it, and walk out. It's right there. If that restaurant industry can pivot, right, and that's the word today everybody's using. I'm going to use it. If they can pivot like that, I mean, why can't law firms pivot? What do you guys think?
So I've always been a believer that the traditional model of law practice is far from the only it is definitely not the only viable model in today's economy. But again, just like people were afraid to work from home in the first place, we've historically seen an industry, the legal industry, that is afraid of change at all. I mean, they're by nature, attorneys are a conservative lot. And so sometimes it takes forcing change to get any change put through.
I think prior to this, there was an expectation that an attorney had a nice office and a nice conference room, right? There was the expectation that they had these vast offices in many cases. And I think now the expectation of the customer is you meet me where I'm at because the circumstances have changed. And I think every industry is going to have to adjust to that, including law firms, where because the customer expectations are different, they may not expect anymore to meet in an office, or they may want to meet virtually, right? And I think meeting that expectation and using the technologies is going to be key.
That's a huge thing that you bring up there, Vinny. I mean, what's really unique here is you might start seeing, and I don't want to misuse the phrase. I would like to try to find a different phrase, because this whole phrase, I'm going to use it, the virtual law office, it's been bantered around for a long time. People
ABA's got a section on it, for crying out loud, Dave.
But this is different. What Vinny's talking about is different. This is about maintaining a purely or almost purely electronic presence.
I disagree, Dave, and we talked about disagreeing. I completely disagree. And I've thought about this virtual law firm idea, okay, with respect to today. The virtual law firm idea was for the lawyer back then. This is for the client. Right. And that's the pivot, okay? In the past, we were looking at ways to be more efficient for ourselves and to the customer, but it was really self-centered focused, right? How do I set up a virtual law firm? Now, I have to set up a virtual law firm because my competitor down in Nashville that I heard of, by the way, this is a true story, did a drive-through closing business for real estate during COVID quarantines. It is to meet the need of the customer, client, right? Not to save costs and be more efficient as an attorney. It's to meet their demands and their needs.
It's about delivering the services through a different medium.
And McDonald's doesn't sell a trillion burgers a day because, well, they're the best. They happen to have a store in every corner and they got a drive-through, and they were the ones that perfected the drive-through, right? And so that's why they get so much business. Not that the food's horrible. The French fries happen to be great, but that's about it. I'm just kidding. I like McDonald's. So, but that's what it is. You got to do it for the customer, meet the customer today. You know?
And again, it comes back to what's the expectation of the customer. And that's the thing that, frankly, historically, very few attorneys focus on that.
It's forward thinking that we haven't done.
Exactly. Whereas the law firm model, this is just one more example where the law firm model has to change to become far more client-centric instead of attorney-centric. It has to be a product for the people, for the clients.
Yeah, you got it.
Their needs.
Well, I want to reel this back in a little bit. Go ahead, Vinny, but I want to reel it back in after this.
The tools exist to do it. The tools are there. The technology is there. The capability is there. Now it's just changing your thinking to match the expectation of the customer.
You got it. And that's a good segue, actually, the tools, right? So here we are. We realize, we see lawyers are going to start working more from home, more outreaching to their customer different ways than before. They're going to also go back to work, but they want to have flexibility to meet the customer's demands. And the technologies have been pretty much forced into place. All right. And so, but the dirty hand on that is that maybe not all of our staff need that ability to service those customers in a way. Maybe a paralegal still needs to be in the office. I don't know. Every area is different. Every customer demand is going to be different in every practice area. But let's assume it's all the same, and we're going to have to take away some of this technology from people that have been set up. Okay. What would you guys say that are some of the things that law firm should be looking at right now that was put into place that should be pulled back on a little bit or secured differently? What would you guys say to something like that?
I would say that if they're not pulling back, they should be securing it better, because if they went in a rush and they set up something quickly, they may not have thought of all the scenarios that they need to cover from a security perspective. Right. Yeah. So if they're not rolling back and they're going to continue on, they should be focusing on the security, because now you're spreading your open doors to everyone's home. Right.
I call it threat landscape. Yeah.
Yep. So it's spread out more. There's more attack points that can be exploited. And so you need to focus on that security if you decide to keep it.
Are you talking about locking down personal devices?
So, say that again, Jim.
Yeah, I'm asking. Are you suggesting locking down personal devices of individuals at maybe their home computers or something like that, putting more controls on them? Are you talking about or tightening it up more at the information source, or both?
I think it's more about, how much leeway you're going to give people to do things a certain way. Mm-hmm. I know that there was a lot of improvisation going on in late March.
That's a nice word, Dave.
To figure out, okay, we got to get this particular process done. We don't necessarily have the exact preferred way of making it happen, so we're just going to do it like this for now.
Yep.
That might have been okay in a pinch, just like FDA emergency authority of certain treatments in a crisis are okay. But at some point, you got to step back and say, okay, can we continue to do things this way? We know it works, but if we have a safer way to do it available to us again, can we still allow that potentially less secure way of doing things to continue? So while it was okay as needed, should we say, yeah, but that was never properly vetted, so now we just got to cut it off? Yeah. And so I think it's really about everything that was added has to be put on the table, and it has to be reviewed. And I frankly think primarily from a security perspective, and I actually have two things people need to think about. One, like you said, the security perspective. Okay. That needs to be addressed, and we got to look at all this technology that we put in place. Is it acceptable? I know that there were some, I'm not going to name any company names or anything like that, but there were several companies that came under scrutiny for certain lax practices at the beginning of the work from home flood.
Hackers were exploiting that too.
Yes, they were. And so the thing is that
fact.
while it was a perfectly usable tool set, not everybody had a chance to really find out if it was okay for them to use. Well, now we have other options. We don't have to continue using that.
Yeah.
We were hasty necessarily, but now it's time to reevaluate it. Go ahead, Vinny.
Yeah. And I think some of the solutions were circumstantial solutions because, hey, can we even buy laptops when everyone in the world is trying to buy laptops? We tried to find webcams and headsets for folks, and they were impossible to find. You couldn't buy cell phones. You couldn't buy cell phones because Verizon was sold out. AT&T was sold out. So some of the solutions,
they were closed too, right? The stores were closed.
Some of the solutions that were put in place, like personal devices, were for necessity, right? But as we plan the coming back, right? Maybe it's important for the business to invest in laptops instead of using personal devices.
Mm-hmm. Well, you know what? We could keep going forever, but we're going to do this every week, guys. And so what I want to do real quick, because we kind of got off a way off topic, valuable information, but both you guys, let's go around the world. Give me 2 things that we should be doing from a technology perspective, specifics, right? About a technology, about a security. Let's go 2 specific things each about what we should be looking at, what our lawyers should be looking at for their firms right now. Vinny, go. Short and sweet too.
So if there was temporary VPNs that were set up to get people to work from home, we should be turning those off. We should be looking specifically at who still actually needs it and who doesn't, because that leaves holes that are open. We should absolutely be looking at that. And if there's anything that was, if we move things to the cloud because it was more accessible that way, we should be looking at what patches need to be applied there, what needs to be done to follow up. What are the follow-up items that we left and said, hey, we'll do those later because we're just trying to get this going. What are those follow-up items? Where are those vulnerabilities?
All right, Dave.
All right.
Good ones, Vinny. Good ones.
In addition to data maybe having been hastily moved to the cloud, I think that there are many instances where people have taken business data and put it on personal devices at home and have worked with it from there.
Look at Vinny just cringe. I know, Vinny. We had to, Vinny. Remember, we had to.
Without having everything locked down, there's oftentimes no way to prevent that in a pinch like we had. So I think you need to stop and you need to take an inventory of, all right, where are all the places our business data could be sitting right now?
Mm-hmm. All the fingers.
Yeah.
And then you need to step back and you need to say, all right, how do we mitigate this?
All right.
What should we do to fix that problem?
Next.
Yep.
Secondly, and I mentioned it earlier, but you need to sit down and you need to take stock in what worked well. Yeah. Because don't throw the baby out with the bathwater. Just because we've sat there and we've said we have to be careful, we hastily added in all this technology and all this stuff. Well, guess what? You got a lot of benefit out of that. So let's look at what worked. And then let's try to find the best way to continue doing that. But you can't even begin to think about how we should change the technology without looking at what is it we're trying to actually achieve, what worked. So those are my 2.
So I got a whole list of them, and I had the benefit of actually putting the questions together for this. So, Vinny, you stole my thunder on one of them. That VPN one is really important. But I'm going to go a little bit further than that, and it goes right along with that and with what Dave said, what worked. Well, if we set somebody up for remote access, any mechanism whatsoever for remote access, lawyers and their staff should be evaluating, the responsible staff should be evaluating, does Sally, who's the receptionist, who is now sitting at the desk at the front of the office with all of the fantastic, protections and stuff, gloves and sanitizer, does she need remote access still? Right? So we should be looking at turning that off if that's necessary, or just disabling it, not getting rid of it, because maybe Sally still might need to work from home one day when when her kids are homesick and their school's closed, not open yet. You never know. By the way, the second round could be schools not opening, guys. Think about that for a second. When and if schools don't open traditionally, we might have a serious situation in our hands. So that's the first thing, turning off remote access for people that do not need it any longer. And right along with that, though, that kind of a B point to that, securing it better. Okay. And so that's one. Now, Vinny, I'm going to ride on top of what you said. Businesses might have moved information to the cloud. Individuals may have too. Okay. So I might have, and as a lawyer who's responsible to get my billable hours for the year, right? And I'm an associate and I still got billable hour responsibilities. I might have said, you know what? I got that Dropbox account. I'm just going to use that. Or I've got that Google Drive or whatever it is, my own OneDrive account with my home Office 365. I might have hastily moved that stuff so I can just keep working, So that's one of those fingers that or tentacles of where that data could be. Now, it's not so bad to use those services. And in a hasty situation, don't feel bad. I mean, obviously, we shouldn't have done it. I wish we'd had better ways to do it, but we are where we are. I believe that those accounts should be identified, Dave, right with what you're saying. Should be identified. Okay, who got a Dropbox account? All right, we're going to move that out of Dropbox and we're going to put it in the corporate OneDrive SharePoint or share files or wherever it's at account, okay? Or get it back on premise. And then I'm going to put a bonus one in there, guys. And Dave, a lot of these are interrelated, okay? If you have a home computer you shared with people like your kids or your wife, and it was your own device and it was set up to work remotely, that device needs to be seriously evaluated. I would suggest your IT companies, and we have it for our customers, I would suggest your IT companies put together a checklist of things that each individual person that was set up to work remote answer. Yes, I've got the VPN. I did have a VPN. Yes, I moved data,
Jim,
that checklist.
Jim, I'm going to interrupt you with a quick question. You had put a tool, kind of floated a tool out there in front of me a couple of weeks ago. Isn't there something out there that can run like a very lightweight system analysis to find out if machines are remote connection worthy, for lack of a better word?
Yeah, there's a number of them, and we had a couple of them. I forget what it was, but I'll dig those up and I'll put them.
Because I think that might be a useful resource.
We'll talk about them
for
next week.
If they want to run a quick scan of the people that are working remotely, so that they could have some level of insight as to some minimum baselines being met.
It's a due diligence, third-party due diligence is what it is. Yeah. Vinny, what do you say?
Actually, most VPNs have a host checker option. So you can say things like, hey, is this machine a part of my domain? Or does this machine have my antivirus or my security software on it? And it will not allow it to connect to the VPN unless it meets the criteria.
Got it.
Right.
I'll dig that up for him. We'll talk about that in our next conversation. But
yeah,
that's to clean it up. We got to clean this up. We've been long enough. I'm going to have to chop this video up already for people. So again, this is Jim Gass, Dave Myers, and Vicente DelVal, Vinny, we call him. And we're with No Law from Left Behind. If you need anything, you want to reach out, ask questions, you can put them into the chat session, into the LinkedIn that I'm going to post this, or the YouTube, or wherever you find it. Or you can email me at jim@splice.net. And if your questions for one of these guys, I'll get it to them and they can answer it. But if you ever have any questions, you can always reach out to me at jim@splice.net or just call 513-252-0212. And the great cool thing about that, don't abuse it, but you can also text that number. That's my office number. Our voice over IP has a text service built into it, so you can text that number too. So, guys, thanks a lot. I think this was good and productive, and you guys had a lot of good information. Thanks a bunch, guys.
Thank you.
Take care, everyone.